All right. Call somebody on the air, screaming loud and sparing none. Call somebody and tell them to tune in to the Wallace Redd Love Power Show, where we discuss all of the relevant issues. We discuss everything from the sublime to the ridiculous. We make the sublime clear. We make the ridiculous make sense. Every Sunday, right after Dr. Isaac Richmond, from 12 to 12:30. And by the way, we want to thank Dr. Isaac Richmond for all that he's done and all that he continues to do. WMQM, 1600 AM, on your radio dial. The number to call if you want to get on the show. Call us right here, right now. Get on the line, 901-327-3400. And I'll tell you why. We have guest speakers who are exciting, interesting, fascinating, and knowledgeable. And I might add thought-provoking. And if you don't believe me, just hold on a second and you will see. And to be a guest on the show, give us a call right here, 901-644-0186. And you may advertise on the show as well. Listen to the show at radio.com, WMQM 1600 AM. The show can be seen on YouTube as well. We're debating the issues, taking positions, defining and defending those positions, offering analysis and presenting solutions, and we provide leadership that the community may face. Vox Populi, the voice of the people. But before we get started, I want to highlight Brother Jabril Shabazz at the Marcus Garvey Institute Teaching and Learning Center located at Lauderdale and Parkway. Give him a call. In the studio today, I have to my right, Homeopathic Researcher, Brother Paul Outlaw.
Well, thank you, Doctor.
And to my left, I have friend, brother, comrade, Dr. Talut, El-Amin.
Thank you very much, sir.
And today, we're going to give it all we got. We're going to raise a question and discuss the issues. How bad off are African Americans? Brother Paul, I want to go to you. How bad are off our African Americans today?
Well, you know, the words can't describe our situation. We can minimize it by saying there's a few issues going on with us, but we have to actually understand, and I always say that, I love the word overstand, because at some point we got to recognize that we have to come up with a solution, and through that we have to understand everything that surrounds it. Basically, it's a problem that's larger than life. We have our black brothers miseducated, suffering to the extent that by any means necessary means to go do things that are contrary to the laws that have the man-made laws that have been made in the United States. So we find ourselves locked up, dead, or just in despair. And we have to find a solution to that. One of the things we have to recognize is that what's actually going on with these penal systems. Why the majority of us have someone we know have been actually a part of the judicial system or are affiliated with someone who knows somebody that's been in the system. So we have to look at that problem and understand that we need to come up with a solution. It's getting worse. It's gotten to a point that it's good for other people because they actually have this now on NASDAQ and Dow Jones. So, I mean, let's face it, there's a problem there. When you can actually profit by selling stock to housing our young black men, and in some cases women. So we have a problem. Where do we go from here? We need to come up with some solutions.
Okay, I want to go to Dr. Talut now. Dr. Talut, I think I want to ask you a two-part question because Brother Paul said something about solution. Mm-hmm. And I think the last couple of times we got together, we agreed that we had come up with a partial solution. And that partial solution is love for one another, cooperating with each other and not hating on each other and buying from one another, which would be part of supporting one another. It would also be a part of the 7 principles that would be cooperative economics and working together and the like. So, will you talk about that a little bit in terms of course we will add to the solution as we go, because education has to be a part of that, as in non-traditional education, because even a Eurocentric woman said that the educational system from the beginning was designed to cause especially black people, dark-skinned people, to conform and work to be laborers. So can you address that, and how dire is the African American situation? Is it dire, and how dire?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
We're in an alarming situation, okay? And we've been there for quite some time. And regardless of how we today address our issues, we do not have a central organizational structure that do the research, that would do the research or make the discoveries and then present to 40 million people a solution. But my thing is, those individuals who have stood before us and claimed leadership are responsible, because they're the ones who say, either vote for me and I'll set you free, or appoint me and I'll do a good job, okay? Select me and I'll make it work. All of those scenarios have failed. They're responsible for where we are today, okay? And that is, again, those people who stand in front of us and say, God put me in this position. Either the preacher, the politician, or the doctor, the nurse, it doesn't matter. God chose me, I'm in the position, I'm your leader, do what I say do. And as a result of that, we're in a despicable condition. When you talk about education, I've said it many times on your show, the educational process is a corporate educational process. It is designed to prepare our children to be laborers. And that's it. Okay? And what I mean by that, when I say that's it, I mean that there are numerous of black Americans with college degrees who are just simply laborers because the work isn't there. Corporate America did not open up the doors to them. So they get these degrees and they end up just laborers. So the whole process of the education is designed to produce laborers, to feed this enormous capitalist machine, either partial, either 75% capacity, 50% capacity, or 100% capacity. Our children are there to serve that machine.
Okay, let me repeat again that I saw something on the internet, and that is Starfall Education, designed to, talked about my grandson, who's now 2 years old, as of yet. It's something that parents, grandparents can start doing today if they didn't start last week or week before. It starts with teaching children to read and write. Starfall from the age of 2 years old and 7 years old, I think, can benefit from it. I want to say that. Brother Paul, what do you respond to what Dr. Talut said?
Dr. Talut has a tremendous way of conveying messages to people, and a lot of us just can't understand how important it is, the things that we're talking about today. I mean, for example, we're talking about this country is designed educational-wise to produce laborers, us as laborers. We have to understand that they built this country off of slavery, and it can only maintain its existence if it continues to have slavery. That gets beyond the sight of most of us, because when we change slavery, the word slavery, to job, a lot of us, black people, African Americans, get confused about it and forget that it's slavery. You know, they have a program in the United States that pays companies as much as $35,000 a year to have interns work for them as a tax write-off.
That's $35 per year per person?
$35,000.
$35,000 per person?
Per person.
Okay.
Write-off to have an intern. And what that does for white people who have the wherewithal to have the means to hire somebody, they don't hire us in the internship, they hire their own. They give them a year basically because of the $35,000 write-off to develop them into a profession that they can later go on and move into another company. And now they've missed that whole year of being unemployed by getting paid $35,000, and at the same time the company benefited by having that $35,000 write-off, but they don't do that for us. And we don't have people in business, not self-employment, business, that are aware of that and doing that for our own selves. Like we said a few weeks ago, we need to take the responsibility. We need to understand that no one is going to do for us what we would do for ourselves. So when we start getting those businesses, and I'm not talking about a self-employment where you've provided yourself with a job, a slave position that you're going to be working there 15 hours a day, and because you call it a business, you think it's a business, but you're actually just providing yourself with a position to have a job. That's not business. Business is when you have an entity that is self-perpetuating. So when you're not there, that business continues to run. You look at Fred Smith, he's not there, but Federal Express continues to run. That's a business. And we need to start thinking along those terms. We have to think big and start small, yes. But we have to recognize that there's so many things that we can do for our community that within this system that we can change our circumstances around. And we have to recognize that if we continue to accept being a laborer as our goal, God bless my grandmother and my parents, but for many years, and I can probably speak for a lot of African Americans, for many years, I was told, get a good education so you can get a good job. Mm-hmm. That's something that we need to change.
Yes, we've heard that time and time again. I like what you said about taking responsibility for our own selves, souls, and own people and community. Dr. Talut, we were talking about the solution on Thursday during our YouTube production, and we talked about that partial solution. And then you said that the other part of it was the deeply entrenched layers of indoctrination that resides within the minds of African American people. You were talking about what those of us who are in the positions we're in and pointing in these directions have to undo those layers and layers and layers of detrimental, I'm going to call it detrimental indoctrination relative to that dire situation. So how does one proceed in terms of going forward with a solution?
Well, I'm going to say this first.
Yes.
When we talk about solutions, and we have to accept the fact that individuals may not have solutions to our problem. What we're doing is talking about things. We're pointing out things based on our experiences and our lives. Okay, so we can point out what's wrong with us, but it takes scientists to bring those solutions that are workable and that would alter our behavior. Because actually, the problem is, for us, is a behavior problem. And so when you talk about those layers and layers of misconceptions, disbeliefs, those layers of what's my word?
False indoctrination.
Yeah, well, that's
detrimental attitudes.
Yeah, and superstitions.
Okay.
That's the word I'm looking for.
All right.
And those superstitions, and they're layered on top of one another. So you can't get to the soul of the man until you can penetrate all those layers of psychics.
Okay.
Okay, you can't penetrate them. So it takes experts. Okay, and that's what the world presents for their people in many different countries. There have been decades, if not centuries, of studies on the behavior of their people through universities and colleges and these types of things, and that information is disseminated through books and literature and TV, media, and all of that, and sort of like indoctrinate their people and alter their behavior to become productive citizens of their country. We don't have that. See, our indoctrination or our behavior modification is coming from politicians and preachers, primarily. Every Sunday, and whenever a politician can get their name for doing something in the newspaper or in the media. So we're getting a consistent bombardment of misinformation. And we've been getting it for centuries. And we don't have the experts or the professionals or the scientists that's working on us to help us become developed human beings.
Okay.
Okay? So a solution to our problem is like finding a diamond that don't nobody want. You know, you have a diamond, you have gold, you have natural resource and power and wealth and all of that on the table, and don't nobody want it.
Okay. Brother Paul, can we act as scientists?
We have a tremendous amount of experience in our community. I believe personally, I feel that our solutions will be unorthodox because systematically across the board, what has been given to us as tools are not even working. Just as basic as the educational system, when we start to educate our kids and take that responsibility, we're going to first have to recognize that the curriculums are going to have to be geared towards raising our kids. So when you talk about STAR and what they're doing, that's a tremendous catapult from what kids are getting in regular institutions. To say that our kids can start picking up books and reading at 2, that's unheard of in our community. Now, mind you, the other persuasion has probably been teaching their kids how to read at 1 and 2 years old in the house and sending them to the private schools because they have their kids at a certain level and they recognize that the institutions the public institutions are not serving their kids any justice, so they send them to private schools. What we do as a people, we follow them and send our kids to those same private schools when we're economically in a position to do that, as opposed to supporting a Marcus Garvey and trying to be parents in a parent-teachers association and help develop the curriculum at Marcus Garvey that's geared towards our kids. So we have layers, and I like what Dr. Talut said. Those layers to me, and I like to simplify things for my own good, and hopefully it will reveal information to the masses, but I'd like to look at those layers as an onion. You know, as you peel those layers of an onion, you get to that core, and that core hurts so bad, you may start crying because you're getting to the real issue. And that's what that onion does. We peel it, and we peel it, and we peel it. And even though we know that there's more layers to go, we know that there's a core somewhere in there, and we're going to come up with a solution. So we have to start somewhere. And if it's education for the young kids, if it's re-indoctrinating young adults and adults, then that's what we must do.
Okay. Sounds like working responsibility to me.
Yes.
To me. Dr. Talut, what about it? What about responsibility, taking responsibility, especially relative to education and teaching the children to read, and not just read, but to read with a critical eye. Because you've just said that information is in books. How about reading, taking responsibility to teach our children to read, and read with a critical eye? How about that?
Well, yes, reading and learning and teaching, you know, to me, it all happens in the home. Okay, my mother, who's, we believe, on her dying bed right now.
Okay.
She used to take us when we were little children and put us at her feet and get the Memphis Press Similar newspaper, and we would read together. She would make us aware of what the world was like outside the household when we were little bitty. When I say little, I'm talking about like 6, 7 years old. And collect together, we would discuss what was happening in the newspaper, just like a Dutch would discuss. And she did, and she raised us like that. Okay, and so the point about education, it's not so much as the institutionalized education. You know, so if your child has a foundation like that, there's nothing that can mislead them once they get into the institutions of learning, as we call them.
Yeah.
Okay, they'll be led right. They'll understand. They have not. But the thing about our children today, parents are not involved in their education at all, really. They just turn them over to the school system. And the school systems, again, are established for the sole purpose of indoctrinating them, indoctrinating the children to understand and accept the power of the 1%ers. So all through all the books that you would read in school, you're going to constantly be talking about or being taught about what the 1%ers have done, okay, and who they are, and why they did it. And all of them are white. And in fact, I know in the Memphis school system, and now Shelby County school system, there isn't a curriculum designed to teach about Black Americans' contribution or Black Memphians' contribution to the society. It's all white. Now, is that what we want? Obviously, yes, because that's what we are absorbing. We have no interest in teaching our children proper. So year after year, decade after decade, we're helping the capitalist institutions create and make slaves out of our future.
Okay. Now, you cause the uprising of about 3 questions. Brother Paul, I've heard you say that African Americans, in many cases, don't realize that something is wrong. They think it's normal. We just heard Dr. Talut say that the majority of people, though he gave us a wonderful illustration of the home and family life, and he's demonstrated as a prototype of who a person can be as a critical reader and critical thinking. He demonstrates that every day and every time you see him, especially every time he comes on this show. Is that right? You're right. So what about African Americans think? When you talk about the almost trafficking of human beings as slaves and making money off of them, and what about all of the ills that we face, and the vast majority of African Americans think, except us, we see something wrong, but they think it's normal. You hear them in and out of 201, Papa, man, my lawyer this, man, my lawyer that, man, I got so-and-so for my lawyer, and speak of it as normal. Talk about that a little bit more, about African Americans seeing this dire situation as being normal.
Well, for my personal experience, I've actually had an opportunity to live abroad. And if I could suggest to anyone, if they had an opportunity to live a month, at least a month, to 6 months or however long you can live in another country, do that, because what ends up happening is that your mind opens up to a deeper understanding of what life is all about. We don't recognize that we have a lifestyle that has been given to us. And what a lifestyle encompasses is the culture. So when you have a culture in a community, that becomes the norm. When I lived in the Dominican Republic for almost 5 years, the culture was so radically different from here in the States. It made me aware and conscious of what was going on here, because it wasn't normal there. So when we talk about going to jail, knowing people that, everyone that's in the African American community either has been in jail, knows somebody who's been in jail, or related to someone who's been in jail. And you can probably encompass the whole 100% of our community. That means that that's a part of our culture. That's the norm. It shouldn't be the norm. But the reason it's the norm is because since 1893, when Frederick Douglass wrote his piece on convict leasing, it was enacted a law, and they call it, if I'm not mistaken, it was called the lynch law. And the lynch law enabled the government to allow states such as Tennessee, Mississippi, and a few other ones, Kentucky, Alabama, a lot of them, the ability to lease out convicts to make money because they couldn't afford to pay for the housing of those criminals.
Okay. Hold your thought. We've got a caller on the line. Brother Robert, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Robert.
Yes.
I'm enjoying this discussion or this conversation.
Yes.
I mean, I'm in the world 58 years, and I must say that I have yet to see anything economically profitable, because I've sent 2 daughters to college, and neither of them have yet to get the job that they're qualified to do. My question is, what is really wrong with us? We don't have any Wall Street in our community. We only got, we're constantly in trouble dealing with welfare stuff and all that. There's nothing really happening that should happen. I would like to leave this world knowing that somehow we've overcome these problems, these plagues that continue to tear us out. Is there some kind of a curse on us to not be proper and survive in this world? It's just that we just don't care.
Okay, Brother Robert, thanks for your call and your question. Dr. Talut, will you take that for us?
Sure. Yeah, there is a curse upon us. Okay, and now a curse can be overcome. But
I like
there is a curse upon us, and the curse is from Almighty God. And in saying that is, God is a power, an existence that's real, helps those who help themselves.
Okay.
Men and women who elevate themselves become pure, honorable, decent, respectable. Men and women who elevate themselves become productive. And that's real. Okay, they become productive. They become lovers of self.
Yeah. And self-kind. Is
Absolutely.
that right? Is that right? We've got 1 minute left.
Until that happens among black Americans, and more specifically black Memphians, yes, we are cursed.
We will continue to be cursed.
Yes,
We've got about 1 minute. And I want to say, I heard the sadness and the pain in that brother's voice.
Yes.
We've got a little less than 1 minute. Close us out,
Quickly,
Brother Outlaw.
for the brother,
With quickness.
for the brother who called, we have men like Dr. Isaac Richmond talked about in the last session. We have men now that we're developing that will be able to perpetuate your idea of us getting better. As far as a curse is being concerned with us, there is a curse in a sense, if you want to call it that, but I believe it's ignorance. And as long as we're striving to produce some more sound intelligence in our community, we will answer your call, and we will have men develop to do what you want us to do, and believe that.
Okay. All right. Great show, brothers.